Hello and welcome to another Mika's Garage. In this episode, we are going to remove our heads, cylinder and pistons to clean them and put new gaskets. As this is a temporary solution to put the car back on the road quickly, we are going to keep the same rings if they are in proper conditions. The first thing to do is to remove the rocker cover and the rocker assembly, which is held by two 13mm nuts. Our suggestion is to keep your parts organized as you remove them, so it will be easier when you put them back together. The next step is to remove the push rods. It is advised to keep them always in the same position. To help you with that, we use a piece of cardboard where we mark their position in the cylinder head. Then you make a small hole which will allow you to put the push rod through and keep them tidy and organized. As you can see, this method allows you to easily identify where each push rod goes. With the rocker assembly out, it is easy to access all 8 nuts that hold the cylinder head in place. To avoid any damage to the cylinder head, you should try to progressively unbolt all the nuts to keep the pressure always uniform. With all the nuts removed, you can now start pulling the cylinder head out. Please be aware that you need to be careful with the push rod tubes so they don't fall out, which you can see happen to me. The next step is to pull the cylinders. As they are pressed in, you can use a small rubber mallet to tap the cylinders out. You can also turn the engine, as the movement of the piston will help you push the cylinders out. Now it's time to remove the pistons. To do this, you just need to remove the circlip that holds the wrist pin with some point pliers. Then, from the opposite side from where you remove the circlip, you can push the wrist pin out until the piston is loose. It is convenient to mark your piston and cylinders as a set. To do so, use a punch to mark the number of points that relate to the cylinder it belongs to. With the piston and cylinders out, we took the chance to better clean the engine case. Using our parts cleaner, we also went through the pistons and cylinders to thoroughly clean them, where we removed all the grease from the outside of the parts, as well as the carbon deposits inside of the combustion chamber. With everything cleaned, it's now time to put everything together. First, we remove again the circlip and wristband from the piston. We also put some oil in the piston and connecting rod bushings. To put the piston back in place, we need to position the arrow on top of the piston towards the flywheel. Then you just align the piston and connecting rod and push the wrist pin in. Finally, to keep the wrist pin in place, you just need to put the circlip back. We repeated the same process to the other piston. Next, you need to compress the piston rings to be able to put the cylinders. To do so, we spread some oil in the piston ring compressor and evenly space the gaps in the piston rings. If you consider the piston being a clock and the 12 o'clock being upwards, we put each of the rings facing 10 to, and the next one will be at 10 past, the following one will be 10 to, and we'll keep using this sequence. With the piston rings compressor in place, we can now take care of the cylinder. First, we go through the inner cylinder walls with some sandpaper in a cross pattern. This is to slightly mimic the honing of a machine shop. Even though it's not the same thing, it will help the piston rings seal better. Next, we put the engine gasket that goes in between the cylinder and the engine block, using some RTV. We then oil the inside of the cylinder, and then align the cylinder with the piston. Slightly tapping the top of the cylinder will push the piston into the cylinder. If necessary, you can also use a small rubber mallet to press the piston into the cylinder. rotating the engine to put the second cylinder into the top dead center position, the same process was repeated. With the cylinders in place, the two metal gaskets are put into the top of the cylinders. These will make the seal between the cylinder head and the cylinders. The next step is to put the air deflector plate below the cylinders. This is very important to keep your engine temperatures down. The final step before putting the cylinder heads is to put the pushrod tubes. Before adding them, you should always check the length is correct and add new rubber seals. Once all 4 tubes are in, you can place the cylinder head. While pushing the head down on the head studs, make sure that everything is aligned, both the head studs and the pushrod tubes. Once the head is down and in place, you can put all the nuts back into the stud. You should then evenly tighten all the bolts to make sure that the head goes down uniformly. Using a torque wrench and a defined tightening pattern, go through your bolts to tighten them to spec. Now that we have completed one side of the engine, we just need to go through the same process on the other side. The final step is to install the rocker arms. The first step is to install the rubber seals that go on the studs of the rocker arm. Then we reinstall the pushrod tubes using the same order as before. when removing them. We then lubricate all the push rods. The final step is to place the rocker arm assembly, and don't forget to align each push rod with the rocker arm before bolting it. The final step is to tighten the rocker arm's nuts to spec. I hope you enjoyed this episode where we went through our engine top end. On the next one, we are going to go through the engine accessories, as the oil cooler, oil pump, etc. Don't forget to leave your feedback below, and do click that subscribe button. See you next time!